So thank you, Jill, for joining me today on my lockdown chats. It's a real pleasure to have you. How have you been throughout the lockdown?
I think I'm pretty normal in that the lockdown has been a bit of a roller coaster with some really good bits and some less fantastic bits. Yeah.
Interesting. So I don't know if you know this. We wanted to have you for a women's conference on International Women's Day.
Oh, yes. I'd forgotten about that. Of course, yes.
Yeah. And I was speaking to Carol about it when we were organizing it because throughout my time, should I use Coventry University, I met a few ladies. Now, to me, they are very competent and very good, in my opinion. But usually when I have a conversation with them, they would drop a line saying, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, this is not happening to me. And that I thought it was bringing them down because some would say, oh, no, you are intelligent. I am not. And I look at them and say, I've heard you talk. I know you are smart. So we just wanted this practical stuff to kind of help them realize the power and the potential in them and to be able to move on. Yeah, so it's a real pleasure to have you once again to accept our invitation.
It's great to see you. It's great to meet you and to be here.
Exactly. So today we are talking about limiting beliefs, as I narrated earlier. What is your view on limiting beliefs and how can we identify it in ourselves?
People talk a lot about limiting beliefs and empowering beliefs, and I think there's an issue right there at the start of just naming them in that way, because our beliefs or our stories, or you can think of it as the narrative in your lives or our lives, they're just there. It is part of us, whether they're limiting or empowering. They are actually part of who we are. And I think even something you might think of as a limiting belief can be a reason why you act in a certain way that could actually be quite positive. So I try and think of it more in terms of what are my beliefs and then how can I work with those beliefs, rather than whether they're limiting or empowering or anything like that.
That's interesting. Can you give us an example of a belief that to you use how to work as in limiting or empowering?
So part of my history is when at school, so it's a long time ago, but these things can start that far back and we carry them right through our careers and our lives and our family lives. I was quite badly bullied at school. I didn't have a great time at school, and that led me to some beliefs around fear of confrontation, I'm not worthy beliefs and things like that. And there have been times in my life where my sort of nervousness about confrontation has actually made me approach a situation in a much more collaborative way. And I've learned how to work much more using non-violent communication and trying to bring people to the table to reach consensus. And although that nervousness around confrontation is far reduced from when I was younger, because I'd got that, I learned different ways of doing things. And now, I am very confident in a situation where I'm trying to get consensus from a wide range of people, because I've learned more tools that I can use in that situation and a different way of working. So what might come from quite a difficult life experience as a child, has led me to a place where I'm quite proud of the way I work.
So you have worked with students, you have worked with policymakers and so many people, varied people. What are some of the beliefs you see in them that you think are limiting them from succeeding or going forward or even challenging themselves for a higher purpose or something?
So I think for most people, there's certain things that when I hear them, it just sort of makes me jar a little. And one of them is I should, or I should have. When I hear somebody sort of say, oh, I should have done this, or I should have done that, it feels like that's a very negative view of a reaction or something they might have forgotten to do, or you know, it's almost like they're beating themselves up a little bit. So when I hear that, that kind of jars for me. And I think that's a really interesting point, is people often sort of look back on their beliefs and use it in as a stick to say, oh, I did that wrong, oh, I'm so stupid, you know, I made a mistake and now this has happened. And I find that most people that I interact with can be very hard on themselves. It's like the goal that we set for ourselves and the feedback we give ourselves is often far harsher or far more stretching than anybody else has given us. And I think when we're being hard on ourselves, we're diminishing ourselves. You know, we're all human. That the ability to accept that I would have preferred to have done that better, but I didn't, so what can I do next time? And that's a really, really major tool for me whenever you're looking at things that you think might limit you, is to first see that limitation, to see that I'm afraid of failure. I failed my A-levels the first time round. I had to resit them. It was the first thing I'd failed in my life. And for many years, I was afraid of failure. You know, it was a weakness. It was a negative thing. And first of all, I needed to see that. I needed to see that fear of failure. I needed to be able to say, haha, I'm afraid of failure. Okay. And next time I walk on a stage to talk to 100 staff at one of the campuses, and my heart's beating and I'm slightly, I can hear my voice quivering slightly. People tell me they never can, but I can feel my voice quivering. Right, what's going on here? I'm afraid I'm going to fail. I'm afraid that what I'm giving these people is not going to help them, that I'm going to fail. I see you, fear, and I'm having no time with you. I want to do this. I see you, fear, and I'm still going to do this. I can see that fear. I can accept that fear. I can't eliminate that fear because that belief has been with me for so long. It's a deep track. It's a deep rut in me. But I can see it and I can recognize it, and then I can choose how I react to that and what I do with it. But until I've reflected on that, I can't then see it and I have no choice. I will just react. But by reflecting, I have a choice, and that's what we all need. Because I might choose that today, actually, you know, that fear is too much. It's too much for me. This presentation to 1,000 people is a step too far, and I'm not ready for it. And that's okay too. Because fear can help us. So fear of failure, it can help me and has helped me not overstretch myself, not go to that next point before I'm ready to do it.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah, it makes sense. So you talked about phrases like I should have or I shouldn't have. I've heard that thing before, and at first I was put aback, why shouldn't I say those things? like, yeah, I need to do it. I should have done that. So I am growing. But in place of such phrases, what would you put there to kind of empower you or push you forward?
So why didn't I prep for longer for that? Not I should have. Why didn't I? So straight away, you're in a questioning mode.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're curious. Be curious. You know, we're curious about all the world. We're curious about our masters. We're curious about business. We're curious about all these things we're learning. But if you think about a human being, you know, what a fascinating thing each of us is. So be curious. So be curious. So when you find yourself saying, I should have done, or, you know, then instead say, why didn't I? Or why did I? Why did I do that? And it's got to be a question, not a, why did I do that? It's that gentleness. It's that, you know, it's that other thing I believe so much in, of self-compassion. Yeah. Because the minute you start reflecting on these things, you're opening your personal history. And for some people, Eugenia, that is difficult.
Yeah. You
don't know what somebody's got in their history that might cause somebody to react in this way.
Exactly.
And so you've got, you know, anybody listening to this, compassion and kindness for yourself before you start to look at these things, because some of them might be difficult. True. Some of them might be difficult to look at. So why did I do that? And that doesn't have to be a whole day. You know, people talk to me about reflection. I don't have time to do reflective practice. I'm like, that's because you think it's this mammoth thing with mind maps and flow charts, and you can reflect quite simply, you know. And once you've started a journey of reflecting on what your beliefs are and why you acted in a certain way, you learn those tracks. So one of my tracks, fear of failure. Yeah. And I know it's one of my tracks. So I can have a little, oh, why did I do that? Why did I not say in that meeting about this? Yeah. Because I didn't know everything about that topic and I was afraid of failure.
Yeah. Very true. Yeah? So that curiosity kind of opens you up to answers you might not have realized before.
Yeah.
And probably help you going forward.
Yeah.
But sometimes the beliefs that we have are not of ourselves, not that I am scared of failure, but I'm scared that someone won't accept me, that someone will see me not fit, or that I am a woman, that I am not deemed to be in this space. And they may be justified, they may be true. That's someone's opinion of me. How do I work around someone's limiting belief of who I am?
So it's a really interesting question. And I think the first thing that you have to do is accept, and I have to do is accept that I have little control over what that person thinks, if any. When they first walk in that room and make whatever judgment they make of me, that is without my input. Yeah, that's their belief. There's something I've been working with lately, and I think of it as authenticity. Okay. And I'm talking to you and your fellow students who are much earlier on in your careers, and this would have meant very little to me way back then, 25 years ago. So it might be something that is part of confidence, and it might come with age, it might come just with working with yourself. But this idea of authenticity, this is me. What I present is me, and I work hard to present the whole of me as appropriate, but the whole of me, with my weaknesses and my strengths, with my unconscious bias that I'm not proud of, many of it, but it's there and I accept it, all of this is me, and I do my best to be this authentic person. And there will be people in the world that judge me for being me and have a belief that relates to me. That might be, I'm a woman. It might be when I first started to work in the city after I graduated, and I come from Yorkshire, my accent's quite mild these days. But when I first went to the City of London, I had a very strong northern accent. And people judged me for that northern accent in London, in the city, working at Pricewaterhouse. You know, people said, oh gosh, we had a temp with a strong, polite southern accent, you know, and she was useless, bless her. And people said, you know, oh, but it's great to have somebody who can speak properly.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, okay, speak properly. Okay. But I'm stubborn, so obviously I didn't change my accent then. What changed my accent was later in life as I started to work more internationally, and I realised that actually it's very important in communication terms to enunciate clearly. I've gone completely off track there. Other people's beliefs of me are based on their beliefs. So how do I deal with those? Sometimes you can see them, can't you?
Yeah.
Sometimes you can see that somebody is approaching you with a certain belief because their body language changes, etc. I've learned over time to try and accept with that with as much kindness as I can.
Okay. Because
perhaps they don't know that they're coming to me with that belief. Yeah. But really, it's about, I think it is about building your own self-knowledge. And I used to think it was about giving myself armor. But I realized that such combative terms like armor, like fighting, they don't help me. And I don't believe they help anybody else gain understanding.
True. I think I experienced a similar thing. Go on, Joe. Sorry.
Yeah. No, go, please.
Yeah, about the armor thing, because I worked in an industry that's male dominated, and you keep meeting people who would second guess you even before you say anything. And even when you do the work and do it good, they are still wondering, could she have done it better? And the first thing I do was to build an armor, and I didn't realize it because I thought proving them wrong was the deal. And then I became stressed. I became tired of doing that. And then I started finding ways as to how best I can do it. Do I ignore them, or do I fight them till they know that I am here to stay? And that was a real toll.
Yeah. It's, for me, it's like, you know, do you ever do that? I used to do this, so I'd have a difficult phone call, and I know it would be a difficult phone call, or I'd be running a difficult project, you know, a restructure or something where people were very frightened and angry. And you can choose how you approach that situation. If you know what you're going into, you can choose how you approach it. So you can don your armor, you can get your battle axe out, you can be ready for the fight. And you will get a fight. You will get a fight because you've gone into it looking for a fight. Okay. So if you choose how to enter something, you will have a different experience. And I think a lot of it is about why am I allowing that person's doubt to touch me? And it's the rock you stand on, it's the way you help and support yourself, and how I help and support myself. You know, that person's doubt is not my doubt. I know I can do a good job with this. I have done this task before. I have achieved this goal before. I have had feedback that's told me I can do this. Their doubt is their doubt. It is not mine, and I will not have it. It's not a gift you can give me. Thank you. And there's ways you can do that. I mean, I journal. I actually popped my journal, my current journal, on my desk to remind me to mention, because you asked in your email about practical tools.
Yeah.
And one of the things I did for years, and I do it far less now, but I always recommend this to people I'm coaching, is get a journal, write your thoughts down, but in the back of the journal, write down all your wins. Every single one of them. You know, write down that merit, that dissertation in your coursework. Write down that project that you nailed and you delivered, you know. Write down that networking event that you went to where you got 3 brilliant business cards and you've followed up and you've got good contacts. Write it down. So when somebody comes at you and you go home that day and you just think, oh God, they really didn't believe I could do this. That was so hard. You've got your list and you can go bang, 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 bang. I have done all of this. That person has rocked me. Okay, they rocked me. They're not going to do that again, because here is everything I've achieved and I stand on everything I've achieved.
Amazing.
And if you can't do it for yourself, find a friend. Find a friend. I've got one particular friend, and every so often I have to phone this friend up and I have to go, did you win that grant? Did you deliver that project? Did you win the next grant? Did you do this? Did you do that? And I've just got 5 things that I just go, here you are. I will be your journal. I will show you that you can do this and have done this.
Interesting.
So there's like, that's mine at night before I go to bed. If I really need to, there's a circle of friends and I can phone them and I can say, my confidence is a bit bruised today. Help me. And they'll go, right, I'm here to help. This is what we've done. This is what you've achieved.
So no friends that are,
because it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. And if you're in an industry or a sector where it is male dominated, then it can be even harder as a woman.
So before we come to the tools that we need, just practical tools, you've talked about journaling, you've talked about having non-judgmental friends who will constantly remind you as their job of who you are. My question is, how would you identify a challenge that you have to go through or one that you have to ignore so that you kind of take another route?
I think for me, it's very difficult to see them before the fact. It's easier to see them after the fact. I suppose career-wise, a big challenge that moved me forward was the first time I did a business restructure, the first time that I led on a change program in the university that meant people were at risk of redundancy. And that kind of project is never a project anyone would choose to do. In my world, maybe there are people out there that love to do that, but in my world, you know, that these were people I'd worked with for 10, 12 years. It was not a project I particularly wanted to do. Am I glad I've done that project? Yes. Because the lessons that I learned and the tools and the change it made in my strategic thinking abilities was massive.
Okay.
What it also did, it was the first project that really allowed me to bring my my beliefs, but I don't mean beliefs, my ethical beliefs really firmly into the workplace, because I chose to do that project from a place of compassion, a place of kindness. You know, I brought a really, really strong element of good communication to it. I brought to bear on that project much more of the things that I thought were important ethically than I think I ever had done before in the workplace. And I think that made a difference to people since then. It's a good few years ago now. It's probably about 9 years ago I did that project. And there are still people in the university that were part of that who since then have said to me, you know, how much they appreciated the way I did that. But it was a massive challenge. And I remember going around the university talking to other senior colleagues and getting their input into the structure and saying to them, you know, well, how was it when you led a restructure? And most of them saying, well, I've never had to do that. And I was quite a bit younger than them. I was slightly more junior than them, you know, and it was really like a bit of an eye-opener for me that I'd got this task. And I think that helped my confidence, you know, the fact that I then delivered this and made it happen when other people around hadn't. So I think in terms of transferability, I would say there's a challenge there of something you possibly don't want to do, but you can see how that thing will help you move forward in your career and develop new skills. So stepping up to the harder thing to do, how do you then step to that harder thing to do? And I think a big thing for that is making sure that your own support network is there for you as well. So my friends around me knew I was doing that project and were there to help me as I did that from a personal point of view as well. I think the other challenge, and it's probably more of a gender specific one, is after my son had arrived and I'd been on leave after he'd arrived, going back to work was it was interesting because I didn't think I would suffer from lack of confidence going back to work because I thought I was fine. And I did. And I know it's a common thing for women returning to work. There was definitely issues around confidence returning to work. And that was a challenge. It's not something I would change, but it was something I had to work through. Yeah.
How did you work through that?
In the end, I kind of treated it a little bit as though I was my own new starter. So I've had direct reports for many years, and I treated it as though I was new to the university, and I kind of set up meetings with all my key stakeholders to just say, right, you know, what's been happening, where are you now, what can my team do about that, and how can we make it work? And I went for a lot of coffees with friends in the workplace. So you'll understand this. So you have colleagues who you enjoy working with and you have great professional relationship. And then you've got colleagues who are friends who you can go for a coffee with, and they will talk more openly and generally about what's been happening in the culture of your organisation. And so I did a lot of that, and I definitely made sure that some of those friends were people who'd done sabbaticals or had done long writing retreats, or who were parents and had taken a significant amount of time off. And I used my informal network and my formal network to help me feel like I was regaining my place in the organisation, which that wasn't a view anybody else held. Everybody else was like, great, Joe's back. Yeah. But for me, my belief at that moment was, my place in the organisation feels a little bit wobbly. So there we go. There was definitely a short-lived limiting belief.
So then it's about you taking responsibility and identifying, as you said earlier, those beliefs and tackling it head on.
I do think the key is what is going on here.
Okay.
You know, when you're having a bad day, what is going on here? Is it just that I've got a mountain of work and not enough hours? Or is there something else going on in my head and in my heart and in my emotions that is affecting this? Be affecting you might be completely outside the workplace, you know? It could be illness, it could be something in your family, it could be, you know, a catastrophe in your hometown, or, you know, your home country. There are all kinds of things. But if we don't know, if we're not connected to ourselves, how do we know what we're reacting to? It is quite important. You know, people have often said, don't they? They say, pause before you speak. That for me is a part of it. It's like, it's not so, I'm a northerner. It's not always something I'm good at, but I'm better at it now, because I think there is something definitely there about, you know, well, where is that coming from? An example, you know, in a meeting, I'd been teased by some senior colleagues, really, you know, just simple stuff, but I'd arrived not feeling great. And then my team were doing some presentations, and because I'd been a bit teased, I was feeling a bit like this, and I wanted the senior team to really think good of my team. And one of my team did something, and I kind of barked down the table at this team member to get them to do it slightly differently. And I saw the look on his face, and I just thought, oh, why did I do that? Why did I do that? And in that moment, there wasn't much I could do. But after that meeting, I did take that question. I took that question for myself, and I sat for 5 minutes. I thought, why did I do that? I walked in the room. Oh, I'd forgotten my water bottle. You know, it'd been difficult getting my son to school. Then those two colleagues did that, and I felt a little bit unsettled by that. Okay, right, I need to phone my team member right away and say, I'm sorry I did that. I'm sorry I did that. I won't do that again.
Interesting.
Are you okay?
Amazing.
Yeah, just to understand. And what's really interesting is, if I hadn't done that to my team member, I might not have reflected on that meeting. I might have just thought, oh, that's just the way it was. And actually, it was a really good little reflection for me. And what's really fascinating, just talking to you about that, is even an even deeper reflection is, you know, I will, because of my experiences in early life with bullying, I absolutely cannot abide it. So the fact that I kind of almost bullied my team member in that meeting, just, you know, that's not who I want to be, and just that's not part of how I want to work at all. Yeah. So that situation, and then, you know, making amends for that situation being a really important part of it, a really important part of it, you know. And that involved me being vulnerable. It involved me saying to my teammate, look, this is what happened. It came from my self-belief relating to that. I'm not excusing myself, but I'm just explaining where I came from. You know, are you okay? I don't want to make you feel vulnerable in those kind of meetings again. You know, I will work harder. And it's like, there we go.
Amazing. So I think so far what we've gathered from what you said is identifying the beliefs, and not just classifying them as limiting or empowering, but actually using them to your benefit. And you can do that through curiosity, asking yourself questions that will not put you down, but will probe more actions out of you to do better. And the actions can be vulnerable, like you stated in your example, and it's okay. And that's the growth pattern. So recognizing and actually doing things. Thank you very much. But someone might also say that, well, I am a very confident person. I have no limiting belief. Yes, I'm on the go. What would you say to such a person? Does that also limit their success in a way?
I would say the belief that you have no limiting beliefs is limiting you, because where are you going to grow? where is your opportunity for growth if you believe you have no limiting beliefs? If you believe there's nothing you need to change, how are you going to grow? Yeah, and I would say, ask your friends.
Oh,
ask your friends.
yeah.
And I would say make sure they're good friends, because that's another thing with that should and the positive voice in your head.
Yeah.
You know, one of the great exercises that I've done before is speak to yourself as you would speak to your best friend. Because a lot of people, the way they speak to themselves, they would never speak to somebody else like that, especially not somebody they loved. So speak to yourself as you would speak to your best friend. And I would say somebody that believes they have no limiting belief, find some good friends and have a chat with them. Ask for their help.
Yeah, there'll be some
reviews. And remember, and that's where I suppose limiting beliefs, you know, remove the limiting. Just what are your beliefs? And if beliefs is the wrong word, what are your stories? What are the stories in your head?
Yeah.
What's the narrative in your life? Is there a narrative that says, I'm no good? Is there a narrative that says, I don't fit in? Is there, I'm not good enough? I need to be better? It's hard to think of ones that are not your own, I must admit, but, you know, I'm perfect, or I have to be perfect. A lot, I mean, we do get a lot from our parents, and, you know, we're all grateful for everything that our parents have given us, but you know, in the same way as you grow and as you develop, you've got to find your own way, and the things that drive you as an individual. But if we're not connected to what's going on inside us, I would say it's very difficult to learn and grow. And we're not fixed. We're not fixed. One thing I've definitely learned is that, you know, I think I've dealt with a belief, which I'm laughing because I find that so hilarious now, because what I've learned is you do not deal with a limiting belief. You don't go, oh, right, I figured that one out, job done, don't have to worry about that one anymore. No, it doesn't work like that. All that happens is in 5 years' time, it'll come back and go, hi, remember me? You're in a different place now. Yeah. You've got a different job. You've got more responsibility. You're a mum. So I've come back to see you. And it's like, oh, you're kidding me. I thought I dealt with you. Yeah. We don't. And that's where I think it really comes to that point of it's about recognizing and just accepting them. There's a wonderful poem called The Guest House by Rumi.
Okay.
The Guest House by Rumi. In fact, I might have the book around if you want it now. It's about welcoming in emotion, making space for it, because you don't know what it's going to bring.
Amazing.
It's a good poem.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you very much, Jo, for your time. Really, really appreciate it, and your insights and your thoughts and your words to us. Is there any last things you'd like to tell us before we go, especially in this pandemic or in this era that we're having, about not being a limiting person, whether in your mindset or in your actions?
I think I would have to end on self-compassion, even more so at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, it's a wonderful phrase, you can't pour from an empty cup. It sounds a bit trite, but you know, help yourself, be compassionate to yourself, be kind to yourself, especially in this difficult time. And reach out to your people. Reach out to your people. Because life is tricky, life is challenging. Everything we believe can challenge us in different ways. Reach out to your people. Awesome. And be kind to yourself.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jo, for the time. I really appreciate it. wonderful conversation with you and hope to be in touch soon.
Yeah, you take care.
I have a lovely week.
Bye.